Have you ever faced the insidious truth that the people who bleed you dry are often the very ones you've poured your kindness into? They don't arrive with a scream or a direct insult. Their method is far more refined, more brutal, silent, subtle, surgical manipulation. They are the architects of distortion, twisting reality with a smirk when you stumble, leaving messages unanswered just long enough to plant the seeds of doubt in your mind. And when the pressure finally snaps you, they masterfully pivot, transforming you into the problem, the aggressor, the emotionally unstable one. This dark dance unfolds across every arena of life: a conniving coworker, a relative cloaked in victimhood, perhaps even a phantom of love from your past. The outcome is chillingly consistent. You retreat, a hollowed-out echo of yourself, still desperately trying to keep a peace that only exists in your own deluded narrative, because that's the conditioning you absorbed from birth. Be understanding, be nice, be good. This is the great lie, a gilded cage forged by a society that demands compliance and punishes assertiveness. But Niccolo Machiavelli, the cold-blooded anatomist of power, would scoff at such naivete. His chilling counsel would cut through the fog of sentimentality. Are you being kind, or are you simply allowing someone to erode you piece by piece, an inch at a time, until nothing but dust remains? In this savage world, where emotional predators feast on your vulnerabilities, kindness divorced from strategy is not compassion. It is a self-inflicted wound, a slow, agonizing form of psychological suicide. The brutal truth, one you must internalize like a scar, is this: you cannot fix a broken spirit that has no intention of healing. They are not seeking repair, they are seeking sustenance. Their game is not about resolution, but about consumption. The only real move in this high-stakes game of emotional chess is to sever their access to your mental fortress. And the first, most unforgiving step in reclaiming your sovereign power is to incinerate every saccharine belief you've ever held about what it means to be good. Toxic individuals don't merely want to inflict pain, they crave the spectacle of your reaction. They don't engage with reason, they gorge themselves on your emotional output. They thrive on the chilling predictability of your responses. They know you will reply. They know you will launch into a verbose explanation. They know, with brutal certainty, that you cannot tolerate being misunderstood. This, precisely, is the trap. They don't seek understanding, they demand a performance. Every desperate plea, "That's not what I meant." Every lengthy, exhausting message attempting to clarify your intent. Every act of forgiveness tendered with a fragile hope that this time they will finally get it. Each is a step further into the abyss they meticulously constructed for you. They feign hurt, and you, the unwitting marionette, soften your stance. They hurl blame, and you, the dutiful servant, offer an apology. They retreat into suffocating silence, and your nervous system, programmed for conflict avoidance, spirals into anxiety. They explode into a volatile rage, and you, the designated emotional paramedic, rush to soothe them. Every twitch, every move you make is not an interaction, it is data. Every emotional ripple is a crack they will exploit, meticulously widening the fissure until your entire edifice of self crumbles. If you do not command your own emotional landscape, someone else will claim dominion over it, wielding it as a weapon against you. You might rationalize, "I'm just trying to keep the peace. I don't want to make things worse. I can't be harsh." But this is the language of surrender, a strategic miscalculation of epic proportions. You are not cultivating peace. You are merely postponing an inevitable war that rages within your own soul. And while you, the naive idealist, cling to the fantasy of their transformation, they, the cunning tacticians, are refining their art of inflicting harm with ever-increasing subtlety. You believe you are doing the right thing, adhering to the noble path. But what you are doing is precisely what is expected of you, and what is expected, what is predictable, is what is controlled. Machiavelli, in his ruthless dissection of human nature, observed, "The most successful rulers are not the most virtuous. They are the ones who understand how the crowd reacts and control it from the shadows." Toxic individuals possess an innate, predatory understanding of this principle. They don't demand your unwavering loyalty. They merely require your hesitation, your internal debate, your fleeting moment of doubt. Their ultimate victory is to convince you that your reaction is an unyielding obligation. You must answer, you must explain, you must placate their manufactured storm, but this, too, is a grand deception. The truth, a potent elixir against their poison, is this: you don't have to do any of it. You can remain utterly still. You can walk away, not with a flourish, but with the quiet finality of a closing door. You can shut them out without a warning, without a single pang of guilt. What they dread most is not your anger, not your tears, but your profound, unyielding lack of reaction. Your silence, when weaponized with intent, is the most devastating counterstrike in your arsenal. No noise, no effort, no tedious explanation. It is the first, undeniable signal that your position has shifted, that you've glimpsed their blueprint, and you are no longer dancing to their tune. Reaction is weakness, intention is power, and strategic silence, precisely deployed, is domination. Boundaries are not soft, emotional requests. They are not pleas for moral understanding. They are not a desperate cry for respect. Boundaries are a strategy. They are defensive fortifications in the war for your sovereignty. Toxic people do not breach your boundaries because they fail to comprehend them. They breach them because they have accurately assessed that you lack the will, the courage, or the strategic foresight to enforce them. They probe, they push, they wait, like a predator stalking weakened prey. And every time you flinch, every time you offer a conciliatory explanation, every time you soften the blow, you are not engaging, you are reinforcing their power. For too long you have been fed a diet of societal programming. Saying no is rude, setting limits makes you selfish, turning someone away is unkind. This insidious programming was meticulously designed to render you easily manipulated, a malleable resource for others to exploit. You were groomed to be agreeable, to nod in placid submission, to adapt to discomfort, to absorb burdens that were never yours, all under the banner of being a good person. But here is the harsh, unsentimental truth, the one they don't want you to hear. Good people get used. Strategic people get respected. The choice, now, is stark. Will you continue to be the good, exploited resource, or will you ascend to the ranks of the strategic, the respected? The empire of your peace demands a different kind of ruler. So, how do you commence the arduous, yet ultimately liberating, process of reclaiming control? It begins with an act of ruthless self-interrogation, an absolute clarity that slices through the emotional fog. Ask yourself, coldly, honestly, with the precision of a surgeon, who drains my vital life force? Who treats my time, my energy, my very limits as mere suggestions? Who offers me respect only when it serves their fleeting agenda? Once the answers crystallize, stop begging for permission to protect your own sacred ground. Begin the arduous, yet empowering, task of setting boundaries, not with a whisper of guilt, not with a futile attempt at negotiation, and certainly not with the soft-bellied weakness of emotion. Let your no be a clean, unassailable block. Let your distance be a quiet, yet undeniable pronouncement of finality. Let your actions, devoid of fanfare or explanation, thunder where your words once futilely pleaded. To the friend perpetually in crisis, declare, "I am no longer available at your convenience." To the coworker whose demands bleed into your personal domain, state, "I do not respond to work messages after hours." To the family member who weaponizes drama, simply say, I will not engage with negativity today. Then stop. No lengthy, apologetic exposition, no nervous, self-deprecating smile, no frantic overcompensating. Because here is the chilling truth of what toxic individuals fear more than anything else. A person who unequivocally refuses to play their twisted game. They crave loopholes. They demand negotiation. They are addicted to your soft tone, your apologetic stance, your verbose, over-explaining justifications. Strip all of that away, and you strip them of their ultimate leverage. A no is not the prologue to a debate. It is the definitive, unyielding end of one. If someone erupts in a storm of outrage over your boundary, understand this. That very outrage is the definitive confirmation that your boundary was not just necessary, but profoundly overdue. They will accuse you of having changed. They will brand you as cold, selfish, distant. They will whisper that you have inexplicably lost your goodness. Good. That means it's working. These accusations are not insults. They are the desperate cries of a puppet master whose strings have been abruptly severed. The individuals who thrived on the absence of your boundaries will never, ever celebrate the moment you cultivate a spine. But their approval is no longer a currency you accept. Your job is no longer to ensure everyone else's comfort. Your job is to fortify and defend your own peace. That peace, your energy, your time, your emotional space, is your sovereign territory. And like any kingdom, it must be guarded with unwavering discipline and defended with a strategic, impenetrable silence. The very moment you cease to explain yourself, you staunch the bleeding of your own power. A boundary, in this context, is not merely a line in the sand, it is a blade, and the sharper, the more unyielding it is, the less it ever has to be used. Toxic individuals don't need to resort to overt yelling or direct insults. They possess a far more sinister aptitude. They instinctively discern the fissures in your psychological armor, and they press just hard enough, with a precision that borders on the surgical. They do not engage in open warfare. They operate like master chess players, calculated, patient, and utterly deadly. They weaponize the subtle, the insidious, the almost imperceptible. Consider the backhanded compliment delivered with a saccharine smile. Wow, you finally did something right. Or the carefully orchestrated guilt trip. Guess I'll just suffer alone since you're too busy for me. The chilling silence, a day-long void designed specifically to make you question your own worth, to fill your mind with a cacophony of self-doubt. The masterful blame shift. I wouldn't have done that if you hadn't provoked me. And the ultimate maneuver of geopolitical manipulation applied to the personal, triangulation, quietly turning others against you while maintaining an elaborate facade of neutrality. This is not random chaos. It is not accidental. This is psychological warfare, and the battlefield is your nervous system. You begin to second-guess your every move, every word. You find yourself overthinking until your thoughts are a tangled mess. You apologize for transgressions you never committed. You feel an unsettling suspicion that you are, in fact, the crazy one. This is sophisticated emotional programming, and they are its undisputed experts. But here lies the critical key, the Achilles heel of their strategy. They can only continue to run their program if you persist in reacting in the same, predictable ways. Every time you adopt a defensive posture, every time you desperately try to justify your legitimate feelings, every time you plead to be understood, you are not only feeding their ego, you are fueling the very loop that enslaves you. They have no interest in true resolution. Their singular objective is to keep you perpetually stuck, perpetually on edge, because an anxious, disoriented mind is infinitely easier to manipulate. They achieve victory when you relinquish emotional control. They suffer defeat when you remain, with Machiavellian discipline, in command. So, here is how you shatter this debilitating pattern, how you recalibrate your internal compass to point towards strategic power. First, neutralize their game. When they cast their bait, go absolutely still. Respond with a calm, almost surgical neutrality. That's your opinion. I see. Noted. Short. Flat. Utterly undramatic. They cannot escalate what refuses to react. The emotional feedback loop has been severed. Second, delay the reaction. Toxic individuals crave immediacy, the instant gratification of your emotional distress. When provoked via text or email, resist the primal urge to respond instantly. Let the fabricated urgency dissipate like smoke. Time is your most potent, silent weapon. Use it. Let them stew. Let them wonder. Let their own anxiety consume them. Third, and perhaps most decisively, exit the conversation. If the temperature of the interaction begins to rise, if the thick, cloying stench of manipulation permeates the air, simply walk away. No warning, no performative storm out, no debilitating guilt. A calm, unwavering declaration, I'm not available for this conversation, and then leave. That single, unadorned sentence, delivered with an iron will, conveys more power, more finality, than an hour of frantic, desperate explanation, because now they are left utterly alone, drowning in the muck of their own tactics, their own mess, with no emotional supply to feed their insatiable hunger. And when you consistently, relentlessly refuse to engage in their twisted game, they will, inevitably, stop inviting you to play. But be warned, this strategic withdrawal will not be met with immediate capitulation. They will escalate first. When you respond with neutrality, they will press harder with increased vehemence. When you cease reacting, they will provoke deeper with more venomous barbs. When you pull away, they will deploy their entire arsenal of emotional warfare: guilt, crocodile tears, manufactured rage, heart-wrenching pity, not because they genuinely care for you, but because they are losing their iron grip. Desperation is the final, most volatile move of the manipulator, and your singular, unforgiving task is to stay the course. They are utterly incapable of handling someone who steadfastly refuses to absorb their manufactured chaos. They collapse in the face of psychological stillness. So, hold the line. Become unreadable. Become untouchable. Because once they finally grasp that your patterns have fundamentally altered, they will have no choice but to confront a terrifying, existential truth. They no longer wield control over you. When you become emotionally invisible, you become, quite simply, unbreakable. Your entire life, you were indoctrinated into the cult of the peacemaker. Talk it out, fix the problem, be the bigger person. But here is the silent, deadly truth no one dared to whisper. In the hands of a toxic individual, your very empathy becomes ammunition. They anticipate your predictable reaction. They expect your misplaced compassion. They fully expect you to come rushing back, brimming with explanations, softening your stance, offering yet another apology. This is the ingrained pattern. This is their blueprint for control. So, what is the strategic move? You don't merely resist. You flip the entire game on its head. You execute the one maneuver they can never anticipate, never predict. You stop engaging. You stop explaining. You stop rushing to their rescue. This is the inversion move. It's not about confrontational warfare. It's about the weaponized withdrawal of your most valuable resource, yourself. Toxic individuals don't thrive on genuine, healthy connection. They thrive on control-based connection. They don't crave your love. They demand your reaction. They want to keep you locked in their orbit, perpetually circling their manufactured chaos. The inversion move is the deliberate act of stepping out of that orbit, calmly, quietly, completely. You become an emotional ghost. Present in the physical sense, perhaps, but utterly untouchable, an unmoving, impenetrable force. And here is the brutal truth. They will notice instantly. The second you cease to react, you transform into an unreadable enigma, an unpredictable force. And for someone whose entire modus operandi is control through your emotions, this state is utterly terrifying. You have taken the meticulously crafted script they have rehearsed for years, and you have, with a quiet, decisive act, set it ablaze. When they attempt to provoke you, and you respond with a measured, "That doesn't work for me," or "I'm not available for that," or, even more devastatingly, with nothing at all, they spiral into a chaotic abyss, not because they suddenly realize they care about you, but because they are losing their leverage, their very source of power. This is precisely when they will push harder, they will cry, they will rage, they will brand you as heartless. They will beg you to just talk it out. But do not mistake this torrent of noise for genuine affection or a desire for reconciliation. These are merely withdrawal symptoms. They are detoxing from the intoxicating drug of control, and their system is in revolt. The only thing you are obligated to do is to remain utterly detached. Let them drown in the storm they themselves created. You owe no one your precious emotional bandwidth. You owe no explanation for your silence. You require no permission to fortify the sanctity of your own mind. Controlled disengagement is not coldness, it is an act of strategic self-defense. You are not punishing them, you are protecting the sovereign territory of yourself. Toxic individuals do not transform when you futilely attempt to help them. They begin to change only when they lose all access to the very resources they exploit. And when you become calm, calculated, and utterly unavailable, they are forced to confront the one thing they never anticipated: accountability. The less you feed their manufactured drama, the more dangerous you become. They once dictated the entire rhythm of your interaction. They spoke, and you chased. They pulled back, and you followed. They criticized, and you launched into endless explanations. Flip the script. Now you set the pace. You respond when it serves your strategic interests. You disengage when necessary. You no longer chase validation. You dispassionately evaluate. And when an individual becomes more of an exhausting liability than a valuable asset, you don't engage in a futile battle. You simply walk away. No fireworks, no theatrical fights, no grand, explanatory speeches, just the quiet, unassailable creation of space, silence, distance. That is the true motion of power. Quiet, strategic, utterly unapologetic. And that, right there, is precisely what breaks them. Silence is not weakness. It is not avoidance. And it is most certainly not surrender. When wielded with intention, silence is a weapon, one of the deadliest you will ever possess. Toxic individuals crave engagement. Not love, not understanding, but raw, unfiltered engagement. They hunger for your attention. They need you to defend yourself. They yearn to ensnare you in the labyrinthine mess they meticulously create, explaining, justifying, chasing an elusive clarity. Why? Because every single word you utter provides them with more material, more ammunition. Every reaction you betray reveals a crack in your psychological armor, an insecurity they can exploit. Every desperate attempt to clarify your position exposes your fundamental need to be perceived as good. Silence, deployed with precision, strips that power away entirely. The most dangerous individual in any room is the one who no longer needs to speak to be understood. When you embrace silence, you become unreadable, and unreadable people are, by their very nature, impossible to control. You once felt compelled to explain yourself. Now you simply pause, observing the chaos without emotional investment. You once argued back with frantic energy. Now you merely observe, like a general watching a battle unfold from a safe distance. You used to say, "Let me just clarify." Now you say nothing at all. The shift is seismic, a complete reordering of the power dynamic. They cannot provoke what doesn't move. They cannot argue with what refuses to respond. They cannot manipulate what denies them the crucial feedback they need to calibrate their attacks. You are no longer a character in their pre-written script. It's not about absolute, unbroken silence in every single instance. Sometimes the most brutal tactic is calculated minimalism. I see. That's your opinion. Interesting. Or the ultimate power play. No reply at all. Each wordless space you create leaves them grasping, floundering. They are accustomed to pressing your buttons and receiving an immediate, visceral, emotional feedback. When that lifeline is cut, they flounder. They try harder. They push louder. They become obvious, transparent in their desperation. And in that exposure, they lose their crucial edge, their cloak of plausible deniability. When provoked via text or email, resist the immediate reply. Let them wait. Let the manufactured energy of their demand dissolve into the ether. Let them grapple with the unnerving realization that your world does not, in fact, revolve around their insatiable drama. Time, expertly deployed, sends a powerful unspoken message. I respond on my terms now, not yours. If a conversation veers into toxic territory, escalate your silence. Not with passive aggression, not with a dramatic storm out, but with a calm, almost dispassionate withdrawal. State, with unwavering certainty, I'm not engaging in this. Then simply walk away. Do not look back. Do not offer a single explanation. Do not check if they are okay. Let them sit, stew, and choke on the oppressive weight of their own behavior. This is where silence transcends mere absence. It becomes an act of profound, unwavering discipline. You are no longer a participant in their carefully constructed chaos. You are an observer, a ghost, an impenetrable, locked vault. And when you master that posture, the dynamic shifts irrevocably. Toxic individuals subsist on control. Silence, when wielded as a weapon, strips away that control. They cannot provoke you. They cannot guilt you. They cannot force you to react on cue. And that, more than any insult, any confrontation, terrifies them to their very core. Silence is the revenge of the emotionally disciplined, a potent declaration of independence. It is not absence. It is presence without availability. You are still there, still a force to be reckoned with, still powerful, but utterly, irrevocably out of reach. Let them shout. Let them spiral into their own maelstrom. Let them choke on the silence they once used as a weapon against you. Because now, you have weaponized it. And when you choose to speak again, if you ever do, it will not be to plead for understanding. It will be to declare, on your own time, on your own unassailable terms. Silence is not merely the absence of sound. It is the palpable, undeniable presence of control. A single sentence, delivered with surgical precision, possesses the power to shatter years of insidious psychological conditioning. In the treacherous world of toxic dynamics, sometimes all it takes is one sharp phrase, one truth burned into your consciousness, to awaken you from the trance of self-sacrifice. So, here are the absolute truths you must etch into your nervous system, like battle commands. Repeat them, share them, forge them into your impenetrable mental armor. These are not mere affirmations. These are directives for survival and ascension. 1. You don't have to set yourself on fire to keep others warm. Read that again. Let the cold logic penetrate. You do not exist to be a human rescue beacon, pulling people from the self-made storms of their own making. You are not required to burn through your emotional, physical, and mental reserves to keep someone else comfortable in their self-inflicted dysfunction. Self-destruction, however altruistic its veneer, is not nobility. It is submission. It is the ultimate act of strategic folly. 2. No is a complete sentence. No soft landing, no sugarcoating, no nervous laughter or apologetic smiles tacked onto the end. Just no. No follow-up explanation. No context required. No guilt demanded. If someone cannot respect your no, they were never negotiating in good faith to begin with. They were seeking to exploit your perceived weakness. 3. I am not available for that. Not, I'm sorry. Not, I wish I could. But, simply, I'm not available. You are not available for manufactured drama. You are not available for insidious manipulation. You are not available for casual disrespect. Your time is a finite, precious resource. Your peace is an expensive commodity. Your energy is not a public utility, free for anyone to tap. This is an economic reality of self-sovereignty. 4. You've changed. Correct. The old you, the one who tolerated the intolerable, who apologized for merely existing, no longer serves. The new you refuses to entertain such debasement. Let them call you cold. Let them call you selfish. Let them whisper that you've lost your empathy. Good. That means the mask has been ripped away. That means their game is irrevocably over. This is not personal, it is strategic evolution. 5. I don't explain myself to people who are committed to misunderstanding me. Let that truth settle like lead in your gut. You have been exhaustively trying to convince individuals who possess zero interest in clarity. You have been speaking to deaf ears, to minds that weaponize your very words. Walk away. You do not require their understanding. You require your own unwavering self-respect. 6. Peace is not passive. It is protected. You do not stumble into peace like a lucky wanderer. You construct it with intention. You guard it with vigilance. You fight for it with every fiber of your being. That means setting unyielding boundaries. That means walking away from battles that are not yours. That means accepting your role as the villain in the narratives of people who only loved you when you were strategically disadvantageous to yourself. And if that is the price of sovereignty, so be it. 7. Silence is strategy, not surrender. They mistake your quiet withdrawal for weakness because you don't yell back. They assume you are scared because you walk away from their chaos. They believe they have won because you didn't reply to their latest provocation. They are profoundly mistaken. You are silent because you have seen their entire playbook, dissected their every move, and you refuse to act in their theatrical drama any longer. This is the art of strategic non-engagement. 8. You can love someone and still leave. Yes, you can still care. You can still wish them a life of peace and well-being, and still choose with cold resolve never to speak to them again, because genuine love does not demand self-sacrifice. Love does not equate to absorption of their pathology. Love does not mean tolerating chronic disrespect for the sake of a shared, often toxic, history. You can release them without bitterness, without a theatrical performance, without a single, unnecessary word. These phrases are not merely words, they are psychological shields, forged in the fires of hard-won wisdom. And in a world teeming with insidious manipulation, unwavering clarity becomes your sharpest sword. Memorize them, utilize them, and when the moment demands it, speak them with zero tremble in your voice, with the unassailable certainty of a lawgiver, because a single sentence, delivered with complete conviction, can sever 1,000 invisible chains that bind you. Loop these truths in your mind until they become instinct, until they are as much a part of you as your own heartbeat. Then, speak them like law. There invariably arrives a moment in every toxic relationship when your very body begins to scream what your mouth, constrained by conditioning and fear, refuses to articulate. You find sleep becoming an elusive phantom. Anxiety, a constant, low-grade hum, accompanies every interaction. You rehearse conversations in your head that, in reality, never unfold as planned. You walk on eggshells, a perpetual state of hypervigilance. You shrink yourself, metaphorically, physically, emotionally. You give more, endlessly, ceaselessly. And yet, somehow, it is never enough. That terrifying moment when your nervous system begins to buckle, to collapse under the crushing weight of what you are tolerating, is not a sign of weakness. It is your mind, your very essence, begging you to awaken. But instead of heeding the urgent alarm, you, the self-sacrificial martyr, often double down. You convince yourself that it's not so bad. You internalize the blame. You cling to the desperate hope that, if I explain it better this time, maybe they'll understand. If I'm more patient, maybe they'll finally see what they're doing. If I love them hard enough, they'll change. But they don't change, and you are left depleted, bitter, resentful, a hollowed-out shell, ashamed for having stayed so long, yet paralyzed by the primal terror of walking away. Why? Because toxic attachment is not about love in its purest form. It is about emotional addiction, a cruel, biochemical tethering to the manufactured highs and devastating lows. You remain, clinging desperately to the rare, fleeting moments of peace while enduring vast oceans of chaos. You tragically confuse tension with passion, drama with intimacy, and their attempts at control with genuine care. You are trapped in a vicious, self-perpetuating loop. And the most agonizing part of that loop is the brutal admission. You knew. You knew, but you didn't want to know. You saw the glaring red flags. You felt the insidious creep of emotional damage. You even whispered to yourself, in the darkest hours of the night, "This isn't right." But you stayed, because a deep, insidious part of you clung to the fantasy that your love, your unwavering loyalty, could magically heal them, could inspire their transformation, that they would eventually become the person they once so expertly pretended to be. They won't. Not because they are incapable of change, but because they have no compelling reason to. As long as you remain, the performance, the arduous task of pretending, is utterly unnecessary. You stayed because it was familiar, because the known chaos felt, paradoxically, more comfortable than the terrifying unknown of being alone. Because walking away felt like the ultimate failure. But here is the truth, stripped bare of all sentimentality. You are not failing when you choose to walk away. You are not cruel when you strategically enforce your peace. You are not selfish when you prioritize the sacred act of saving yourself first. What is truly cruel, truly self-destructive, is to make yourself sick, mentally, emotionally, physically, trying to be someone else's antidote. That breakdown you experience, the debilitating anxiety, the profound exhaustion, the gnawing emptiness, it is not a manifestation of your weakness. It is a moment of profound, brutal clarity. The intricate system within you is screaming, with an urgency you can no longer ignore. This is not sustainable. You don't need more endless conversations. You don't need to labor over finding the perfect, most empathetic words. You don't need to offer a verbose explanation for why you are finally, irrevocably walking away. You only need one singular thing: permission. Permission to protect your vital energy. Permission to outgrow the version of yourself that accepted less than you deserved. Permission to leave, not with a storm of anger, but with an unassailable certainty. You owe no one your continued suffering, no matter how much they once mattered to you. That is the moment of emotional collapse, the death of a cherished illusion. The precise instant you cease hoping for who they could be and finally, with a cold, clear eye, accept who they are. It is painful. It is messy. It will tear at the fabric of your perceived reality. But it is also the undeniable, terrifying, yet exhilarating start of something else entirely. Your triumphant return to power. Because only after the collapse, only after the old paradigm has crumbled to dust, can you begin to rebuild something stronger, something rigorously boundaried, something crystal clear and utterly, magnificently untouchable. Let them go. Let the toxic fantasy die, a merciful death, and let your real, authentic, unburdened self finally begin to live. Toxic individuals are not complicated enigmas. They are tragically, terrifyingly predictable. They operate on meticulously observed patterns, on finely tuned triggers, and, most crucially, on your weaknesses, not their own. The reason they repeatedly win is not because they are inherently smarter or more powerful. It is because you, the well-meaning, emotionally invested protagonist, persist in playing by emotional rules, while they, the cynical strategists, play by the unforgiving laws of power. It is time, irrevocably, to rewrite your rulebook. Below are the non-negotiables, etched in stone, not mere suggestions, but unassailable laws for your personal sovereignty. Law 1. Anyone who gets angry when you set boundaries was benefiting from your lack of them. They are not upset because you have suddenly become cruel. They are incandescent with rage because the game has fundamentally changed. They can no longer control the version of you who apologized for everything, who tolerated the intolerable. You have evolved, and they have lost access. Good. Let them writhe in their frustration. Law 2. Loyalty without limits turns you into a servant, not a partner. You do not prove love through endless endurance. You do not prove your inherent worth through the quiet suffering of a martyr. People who genuinely respect you will never test how much pain you are willing to absorb. Only users, only exploiters, engage in such depraved experiments. Law 3. You are not responsible for someone else's healing. You can care, you can offer support, but you absolutely cannot carry the crushing weight of their unresolved pain. If they steadfastly refuse to take responsibility for their own emotional wounds, that pain will inevitably become weaponized against you. That is not healing. That is emotional debt collection, and you are not their bank. Law 4. If you have to argue for your value, you are already surrounded by the wrong people. Respect is a palpable sensation, not a commodity to be begged for. Validation is a natural outcome of genuine connection, not a concept to be negotiated. The very moment you begin to justify your worth, you have already, by that act, surrendered it. Take it back. Law 5. Silence is not passive, it is calculated control. Silence is not the void that occurs when you have nothing left to say. It is the deliberate, strategic choice made when you realize words are utterly useless. You do not argue with a raging fire, you smother it, strategically cutting off its oxygen supply. Law 6. Guilt is their leash. Let them drop it. Toxic individuals are masters of weaponized guilt. It is the invisible tether that keeps you bound, the insidious whisper that makes you question every decision you make in your own best interest. Break the chain. You are not a villain for protecting your own sacred peace. Law 7. Closure is a self-delivered verdict, not a shared conversation. Stop chasing the elusive final words, the mythical last explanation. You do not need them to understand your decision. You do not need them to agree with your path. You certainly do not need them to utter an apology that may never materialize. Closure is the moment you decide, with unshakable certainty, this ends here, and you mean it. Law 8. Time and access are privileges, not inherent rights. Just because an individual had unhindered access to you in the past does not, in any universe, entitle them to it in the future. People must earn their way into the hallowed space of your life, and they must irrevocably lose their place when they violate its sacred trust. Law 9. Emotional discipline is power. This is not about being cold or devoid of feeling. It is about being strategic, a master of your own internal state. The one who remains calm, who meticulously chooses when to engage, who no longer dances like a puppet when provoked, is the undisputed owner of the room, the true sovereign of the interaction. Law 10. You are not the same person they manipulated before. You have seen their patterns. You have meticulously named their insidious game. And now, you no longer flinch when they attempt to ensnare you again, because this time you do not react. You respond, if at all, on your terms, with zero emotion, no apology, no opening, no crack left for them to re-enter your life. These laws are not cruel, they are profoundly necessary, because when someone feeds on your chaos, boundaries become your only act of war. Enforce them without emotion and without exception. Fast forward a decade. Where will you be? Still trying, still exhaustively explaining, still clinging to the desperate, naive hope that they will finally change, still trapped in the same suffocating cycle, the same hollow apologies, the same corrosive guilt, the same circular conversations that go nowhere, achieve nothing. You've meticulously built your entire life around the delicate, impossible task of not upsetting them. You've shrunk yourself, diminished your very essence, all to maintain a relationship that offered you no oxygen, only suffocation. You've sacrificed genuine friendships, missed invaluable opportunities, silenced your unique voice. All for what? A fantasy. A ghost of who they once expertly pretended to be. No one, absolutely no one, will write songs about the years you tragically wasted. No one will applaud you for sacrificing yourself quietly, incrementally, until nothing but a whisper remained. There is no trophy, no medal of honor, for loyalty to someone who never once demonstrated loyalty to your sacred peace. That, right there, is one version of your legacy, the one where you become a hollowed-out version of yourself, polite, broken, exhausted, perpetually smiling through the pain. But here is the inversion, the alternate ending, the one where you finally, brutally woke up, where the pain wasn't an end, but a clarion signal, where the collapse of your old self wasn't a tragedy, but a potent alchemical catalyst, where you declared, with the force of a tectonic shift, "I'm done playing small to keep someone else comfortable." You stopped justifying your existence. You stopped performing the endless, draining charade. You stopped explaining yourself to people who were never truly listening, who only heard what they wished to exploit. You walked away, not to be cruel, but to be whole. And in that ultimate act of self-preservation, you became someone entirely new, someone formidable. This transformed version of you does not flinch when people register their disapproval. You no longer explain your boundaries. You simply, powerfully, enforce them. You don't chase after the illusion of love. You recognize genuine alignment. You have, with deliberate intent, burned the bridge to your old self, the one who tolerated too much, apologized too often, made endless excuses for behavior that never, ever changed. And out of those purifying ashes, you have constructed something colder, sharper, cleaner, an unassailable peace. The kind of peace that doesn't ask for permission, the kind that doesn't arrive burdened with guilt, the kind that stands in quiet, unwavering silence, even when provoked to its core. This, precisely, is what people feel when they observe you and declare, "You've changed," and they are absolutely right. You have. You had to, because survival without profound transformation isn't survival at all. It is a slow, agonizing stagnation. They will lament, "They used to be so sweet. They're different now." They think they're better than everyone. They will twist your name, brand you as distant, call you selfish. Let them. Their distorted narrative is no longer your responsibility. Their discomfort is no longer your debt to bear. The version of you they remember, the compliant, self-sacrificing version, no longer exists, and she is not coming back. What truly becomes your legacy is not what you endured with stoic resignation. It is what you, with conscious, deliberate will, chose to no longer tolerate. Not the pain you absorbed, but the unyielding line you finally drew. Not the tears you cried in the dead of night, but the profound silence you mastered. Not the people you tirelessly pleased, but the sacred peace you fiercely protected. That, and only that, is what truly survives. So, the ultimate question, the one that will define your future, is this. When they speak of you in the years to come, will they whisper, She gave until there was nothing left, a hollowed-out shell, or will they declare, with a mixture of awe and fear, she walked away, and she never once looked back, because at some critical juncture you must cease asking what they want from you, and begin, with brutal honesty, asking, what does my future truly deserve? The answer to that single question decides everything. You do not owe them a final conversation. You do not owe them the fabricated gift of closure. You do not owe them the theatrical performance of your pain. When the time comes, you leave. Quietly, coldly, completely. Not to teach them a lesson. Not to make them miss you. Not to manipulate their emotions, for that would be to become precisely what you are leaving. You leave because it is done. The role has expired. The insidious pattern has been exposed. The game has no more moves left to play. You do not cry in front of them, offering them one last feast of your vulnerability. You do not send the long, rambling text, attempting one final, futile explanation. You do not announce your awakening with a triumphant flourish. You disappear, you reclaim, you evolve. Power is not loud. Power exits the room and never ever returns. They will, inevitably, try to bait you. They will brand you as heartless. They will feign confusion, a desperate attempt to lure you back into their web. But deep down, in the darkest recesses of their manipulative souls, they know precisely why. They know, with chilling certainty, what they did. They simply harbored the desperate hope that you would never be strong enough to leave. But you are. And not because you became cold and emotionless, but because you finally became clear. You do not have to hate them. You do not have to wish them harm. You simply have to refuse to be accessed again. No second chances, no reopening the wound, inviting infection, no more explanations to people who systematically used your kindness as leverage, as a strategic weakness. You are not abandoning them. You are, with an act of profound courage, rescuing yourself. The most powerful sentence in your entire arsenal is not, "I'm done." It is the profound, unyielding silence that inevitably follows. Let it ring. Let it echo. Let it end everything that no longer serves your sovereign self. Because when you finally, irrevocably choose yourself, you don't announce it. You vanish.